I have with me today Lisa Pagotto. She has a mind-blowing journey creating one of Australia's leading niche travel brands, Crooked Compass. She sold her home to fund her business, and what unraveled on her journey will have you spellbound, on the edge of your seat, and maybe even on the brink of tears. I can attest to this because this was my experience hearing Lisa's story on stage earlier this year. With over 21 years of travel experience, she's excelled in all facets of the industry. Her efforts in experiential travel space have directly influenced the development of the whole movement. Her commitment, curiosity, and daring sets new standards for the industry. With incredible stories overcoming adversity and challenges you never dreamed possible, Lisa has battled it all. With a passion for fading cultures, education through travel, and a new skill set of becoming a pilot, at a time which is so fucking badass. At a time when tourism was at a standstill, she's poised, whip smart, and straight shooting, and will leave you feeling inspired and fired up to chase what you really want. This is my kind of woman. With a maverick spirit, she founded Crooked Compass, an Australian experiential tour company focused on seeing often stigmatized destinations through the eyes of locals. Their immersive journeys inspire and educate travellers about responsible tourism and the importance of supporting local community initiatives in places the tourism industry often neglects or overlooks due to those stigmas. These journeys, they can be demanding, but Lisa is always mindful of the impact and recognize it's a privilege to connect with these places and people. Lisa, welcome to White Hot Business.
Thanks so much, Lauren. It's amazing to be here with you, and thank you for that introduction.
I have to tell everyone how I first met you, which I would probably do over. I would do one of the first things I say to you over in a way, which I'll expand upon in a moment. But we were both at the Ignite conference earlier this year, run by Luminate Leadership. Cherie has been on the podcast, so go back and listen to her episode about running sellout events. But we were both on the speakers table, and I just was like, I know you. Oh, you've been on Cherie's podcast, Lead with Courage. And then I just stop and I just said that bonehead thing of, oh my God, were you on Shark Tank? Just said, Lauren, slow it down. Like, just could you have been a little bit more graceful? And you go, yes. And it was just like, I saw your face and I saw it on TV many moons ago. And I was just wondering, do you get that often?
I do. And what is so funny is that was such a long time ago,
So
and
long
somehow people
ago.
remember.
And
And
it's in my psyche. You are in
yeah,
my psyche. I didn't even know it until I saw you in real life.
yeah, that was like 8 years ago, and I still turn up to industry functions, or I'll be at relevant conferences, and someone will say, "Are you that girl from Shark Tank?"
Still to this day, still to this
Still to this
day.
day, yes.
We will touch on that in a moment, but just going back to what I was reading out in your bio, when I sat next to you and was like, oh, you're Shark Tank, and you and I had a conversation a little bit later on. It was all about how we're laughing about how unemployable we are because we've just created these not just niche, but like niche upon niche upon niche roles and businesses and just gone, we don't fit in anywhere. We could never conform to anything that's out there. And when we had that conversation, it wasn't very long, but I knew that I'd met a like-minded spirit and I knew that I'd met a fellow disruptor. And I was like, oh, okay. Like it was a time where I think I wasn't meeting a lot of disruptors and I was like, and then I came across you and was just like, oh, I can exhale again. They're out there.
Yes, yes, I can certainly say that it was that. I wouldn't, light bulb is probably the wrong word, but there was some kind of like, oh my God, I found a soul sister.
Yeah.
It's so rare. And I remember you and I having that conversation of just being like, oh my God, we're such a rare breed, trying to find other females who have the energy, have the passion to just shake things up. And, It's very difficult. We had that conversation about trying to encourage other people to find that within themselves,
Yeah.
and just being able to connect with you so instantaneously was
Yeah.
so refreshing.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. Me too. And then the build up continued for me because then I had the privilege of watching you speak as part of the Q&A, and I've got goosebumps running down my legs, which is my sign from the universe that like just absolute magic has happened. But I was on the edge of my seat. I was literally on the edge of my seat listening to your story, and I was like leaning off far forward. And that doesn't happen often to me. It takes a lot because my threshold for excitement and thrill is so high. I just was like, oh, wow, I feel totally absorbed, engaged. And I would love listeners to hear aspects of your story for what you're willing and open to share, because I think it's not just about the arousal of listening to your story and going, whoa, it's not just that. There are such rich learnings embedded in it. And I would love to start just by asking if you could take us back to post Shark Tank, just how some of your business journey unfold from that moment on and what you went through in that process.
Sure. So it was a bit of a roller coaster. Shark Tank was certainly what put my business, Crooked Compass, on the map. It, having that primetime TV exposure to hundreds and thousands of viewers was incredible. And so we're talking pre-pandemic. Everyone was not on Netflix at this point. People were still watching commercial TV. And the exposure was just incredible. It just sent the business on a trajectory. It sent me into this kind of sphere that I'd never really been exposed to in the business world before, where all of a sudden I had media left, right, and center, media attention, people wanting to talk to me, wanting to talk to the girl who sold her house to build a business, wanting to talk to the girl who'd been on a reality TV show but didn't get the investment. What did that look like? And then people who were just fascinated in my story up until that point. And that was a very early part of my journey. The business was only 2 years old. And so following the show, the business just exploded, and it just kept going and going and going. There were more and more people finding the business, realizing that there was something in the Australian market that delivered a unique style of travel, but really wasn't that recognized at that point 8 years ago. And it was kind of like, you just got to get your skates on. You've just got to go with it, run with this momentum. You don't know when it's going to stop. At some point it will. Just take what you've got, find the energy, and just keep going. So from a business perspective, it was fantastic. Bookings were coming in. We were launching new destinations. I was escorting tours. I was going to some of the most incredible places in the world. But behind all of that, obviously the business had to restructure, build up. We needed more manpower. And I did have one of the sharks sort of take me under her wing and offer that behind the scenes support, which at the time was fantastic. But like anything, sometimes things are too good to be true. And, caught up in that media hype and spectrum, I'd never had that before. And so I guess I potentially had some rose-colored glasses, or I was just caught up in the thrill and the adrenaline and everything that the emotions, the high emotions that came with media attention, that I didn't necessarily see red flags coming my way, and red flags that I'd never been exposed to before. So I didn't know how to identify.
How are you to know?
No, and I was doing this on my own. I had a couple of team members, but they weren't involved in this behind the scenes process. And effectively, I basically had the rug pulled out from me and almost lost my business because of it. I was so caught up in the hype and the excitement of the boom of the business that I didn't realize that somebody else wanted it, and they would do all that they could to try and take it. And it ended very, very badly. And it was at a terrible time because I was literally about to take custody of my son, who was adopted from South Korea, and everything imploded at that one time when I should have been so focused on becoming a mother for the first time and focusing on my son, who was about to be displaced from living in South Korea and being removed to Australia. He'd never heard English. And I was so completely distracted by this bomb that had exploded in my business. And that was kind of the first, oh my God, my world is falling apart, when everything should be so amazing because I have this beautiful new human in my life. And so that is, I guess, a very brief nutshell without going into nitty gritty detail as to what kind of went down. But that was the first real dip of the emotional roller coaster that was to come following the Shark Tank exposure, being stuck in this high, being slammed to the ground when a certain person didn't get what they wanted out of my business because I stuck tight. I wanted to keep my equity. I knew I was onto something. The pressure that was coming from this person that was so hungry to get into my business and ultimately try to take it only said to me, okay, I've got something pretty damn amazing here. You're not having a piece of it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it kind of went bad. Anyway, from there, I became a mother. I had the most beautiful boy enter my life. And the next 18 months was pretty tough, both as becoming a mum for the first time, but also with trying to rebuild my business. I mentioned that this situation following Shark Tank almost decimated my entire business. I was left in this incredible debt that I did not have the cash flow to trade out of. And I really did not know what to do, where to go. I had to stoop to the lowest of lows. I felt sick. I had to ask for advances on inheritance. I tried to apply for every possible interest-free credit card and just anything to try and scrape together the funds to not allow my business to fail. And the most amazing thing happened on International Women's Day. I was at a function, feeling at my absolute lowest, going, oh, shit, technically my business is in administration and I have no way out. I'm getting nowhere with what I'm trying to do. My business is too small for anybody to take it seriously. And this amazing human who I have always looked up to in the travel industry, right from when I was in my 20s, was hosting a session. And her session was, write down someone who you've always aspired to in the industry, but you don't have the courage to go and introduce yourself to, but you'd like them to know who you are. And I was like, oh my God, you were talking about getting goosebumps and magic happening and things happening at the right time. For me, I was like, oh my God, all of a sudden I just had this spark and I was like, this is perfect. And she was my person. And so I'm sitting there at this table and I said to my table, I hope she asks for somebody to share, because if she does, I'm going to put my hand up and I'm going to walk to the front of that room and I'm going to give her my business card. And there was this man on the table and he goes, you won't do it. No, you won't. And for anybody that knows me, the minute that you put a barrier in front of me, I'm just going to completely smash that. And in my head, I was like, fuck you. Yeah. Who do you think you are? Just you fucking watch me. Anyway, she did. Would anybody like to share? I was sweating. I was in a makeup dripping. I was all over the shop, nerves. And I put my hand up and she said, yes, and who are you? And I said, I'm Lisa from Crooked Compass. And she said, yeah, and who's your person? And I got up shaking and I walked to the front of the room and I gave her my card and I said, you're my person. And she was stunned. Her jaw was on the floor. She's just staring at me like, what the hell is just happening? And I just stood there and the whole room was silent. And she took my card. And 2 days later, her EA had made contact and we'd scheduled a lunch. And she said to me, so who are you? What do you do? Tell me your story. And I told her about my business. I told her what I was creating and I told her the shit that I had just gone through. And I gave her every detail. She was the first person outside my sort of close network that I had spoken publicly to about this. And she just leaned back in her chair and stared at me and said, what's your figure? And I said, what do you mean? And she said, what figure do you need to get out of this mess and to be able to focus on your business again? And I was so baffled and so confused by what she was saying. Like the question was clear, but because of all the emotion and just everything that I'd been sort of fighting through, it was cloudy to me what she was actually saying. And she literally said, how much do you need to get this debt out of your world and to move forward, to refocus, re-energize, get that business booming again? And I gave her a rough figure and she goes, send me your bank details right now. And I went, what? She goes, do it right now while I'm sitting here. Otherwise I'll forget about it. Send me your company bank details. And by the next morning, I had that figure in my bank account and I rang my accountant going, what do I do? What do I do? He's like, don't touch it. Don't touch it. This needs to be drawn up legally. But anyway, she saved me. She removed this incredible debt from me. That was a very bad business decision on my part, being so distracted with everything else that was moving, and allowed me to get my business back on track. And I will never, ever forget that kindness just from she wasn't a complete stranger to me, but I was a complete stranger to her. And that just gave me such a boost, such a confidence kick to get me back on track and to just stop being so distracted with the noise. And
Mm.
the next sort of 18 months of the business, we just flew. We just kept flying. The business was expanding. I had staff coming in. It was amazing, so, so amazing. And then the pandemic hit and everything was undone. Borders shut. At first, I literally remember having a conversation with my team in the very early days saying, it's only really going to affect our China tours.
Mm.
That's really just one tour and it's departing in May. So it might be okay by May. They're saying, you know,
Mm.
6 weeks and it will be okay. And then it kept expanding, expanding, expanding. And then we had to cancel all of Asia. Then we had to cancel, oh my God, it's been found in Europe. And then the borders shut. And it was just having come through the tumultuous turmoil of someone trying to take what you've built
Yeah.
and coming out the other side, having a moment to
Oh,
breathe
yeah.
and rebuilding your little empire, to have it completely taken away where there is literally nothing you can do.
Powerless.
You
Like
were completely
powerless.
powerless.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I ask this before we go on? Because this next part is integral to your story. When I was listening just now and listening to you on stage, I was like, beyond betrayal, is there any other feeling that you felt? Like you mentioned before, there were red flags, but you didn't even know there were red flags. Just from a learning perspective, was there anything else that you felt from the dissolution of that working relationship that you had with the Shark
Yeah.
Tank person?
Absolutely. And I think that this was potentially ignorance from my part, being young in the business world, but I have always wanted to operate my business with integrity. And
Mm.
I ignorantly assumed that that is also how other people
Yeah.
want to operate.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, betrayal is a pretty spot on word, but also the shock and the confusion of just that. I'll use the word shark as the
Yeah.
prime example here. There are so many sharks in business. You see it in the movies, you see it on TV, but when you believe somebody is honestly helping you and you trust them wholeheartedly, the last thing that comes into your mind when you have put all your faith and belief into this person who you thought wanted to help you is shock, confusion, absolutely betrayal, and just this, there's not even really an emotion to describe it, but a what the fuck?
Yeah.
What is this? And just this spinning of your head going, how did I not see this? How did I not recognize this? How did I get caught up with this type of person? Because this is a personality I would never do business with because their values don't align with how I do my business.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I learned very, very quickly, the very hard way. But the minute that I get that gut feel that someone is not aligned with what I want to deliver,
Yep.
I'm out.
You're out.
I'm out.
Okay. I want to bring this up because partnerships and collaborations are a part of all of our businesses in some ways, no matter what scale. And what I'm hearing is that you can really almost like suss out where someone else stands before it gets to a point of having a deeper investment in that partnership. Am I right in saying that now? That's really informed how you move forward with values at the forefront.
Yeah, absolutely. And it wasn't an easy thing to learn and to recognize. I guess I'm possibly one of those personalities that just naturally looks for the good in everybody.
Yeah.
And so once you've been significantly burnt, all of a sudden you have your guard up and you look at
Yeah.
things through a different lens.
Yeah.
And for me, yeah, you constantly hear people in business talking about gut feel and head or heart decision and those sorts of things. For me, with everything that I've gone through, and I know that we're sort of only halfway through the story at this point, but if it doesn't feel right in the gut, it's not right.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're looking at figures and facts, and financially this doesn't add
Yeah.
up, but your gut tells you it's good.
Yeah.
And so to me, when you've got that guttural connection to a person or a product or a vision, it drives you to make it succeed. Whereas something that is just your head or just logistical or just financial,
Yeah.
it might work for a certain style of business, but it comes down to how you operate. And for me, everything is about honesty, integrity, and transparency. And that to me all connects with the gut feel.
Yeah. And how has that experience informed how you communicate with people? Because we have to be honest in business, and you've mentioned honesty, and these are hard conversations. And I think they're particularly hard for women because so many women do struggle with being nice, not wanting to disappoint anyone. Oh, I said I would, therefore I have to follow through with it. What have you learned about yourself and the way that you express and communicate through some of those opportunities or potential partnerships?
Yeah, that's something that has really evolved for me. I
Mhm.
was that person that had to be the people pleaser because I thought it would damage my business if I wasn't.
Yeah.
I thought if I didn't become a yes sir kind of person,
Mm-hmm.
that I would miss opportunities,
Yep.
that people would think I wasn't experienced enough, that people would think I couldn't handle certain situations. However, all it's done is give me a thicker skin and made me back myself more and believe my ability and my confidence and my product and also in my team that not everything is right for us. And so I'm a very black and white communicator.
Mhm.
I have never been good at being able to sugarcoat.
Yeah.
It's something that that is very forced for me. Sometimes that works in my favor, other times it works against me, and I'm very aware of that.
Mm.
But in terms of my communication, I'm very transparent. Sometimes it costs me opportunities, other times it embraces opportunities because it's respected. So it's not just my communication style has changed and now everything's fantastic. It still has both pros and cons to it.
Yes,
But
yes.
but one thing is that it's really set in place a lot of non-negotiables for the way
Oh,
people speak to me and my
oh,
team. And the minute that, and once we start talking about the pandemic and disrespect and impatience and those sorts of things, that sort of thing is still unfortunately flowing through where there's this entitlement with certain people. And the minute that someone is disrespectful to myself and my team, previously I would have been quite polished and tried to be as soft as possible to massage the conversation to
hmm
become smoother and not so confrontational. Now I'm just like, you do not speak to me like that. If you want my help, you be respectful. Whereas I did not have that backbone or that thick skin prior to all of these obstacles to recognize my worth, to have the confidence to be that little bit firmer and to put my foot down when I don't feel okay with something.
Yeah. Wow. What does that feel like in your body when you draw that line with people and you implement that non-negotiable?
Sometimes it is terrifying,
Hmm.
but most of the time it is completely exhilarating to know that you've gone through this journey of self-discovery, of really respecting your own personal worth. And once you see that reaction that triggers that respect that was either lacking or that you deserve, and you see it, okay, then you're like, yes, I've got this. I have finally nailed my communication technique. I'm finally ensuring that I'm getting spoken to or addressed the way that I deserve. Not, and from my side, it's never disrespectful or rude or anything. It's just being firm and factual. And
Yeah.
it was something that I really did struggle with. And now it's just a natural part of my communication style. And that has evolved from all of these hurdles.
Yes, yes. I really want women to hear that like the hurdles can fortify your power in ways that you can't quite discover without those hurdles. Like it becomes a requirement. I have to stand up for myself. I have to have standards. I have to have non-negotiables, and I have to be crystal clear in
Yeah.
drawing those lines with people.
Yeah, absolutely. And the minute that people see that you have a non-negotiable, they'll respect it. The minute
Yes.
that you're grey and you're
Yes.
unclear,
Yes.
it's when you get walked all over.
Yes. Yes. Okay. This is what I say to my clients. When you're gray, when you're people pleasing, it doesn't just affect you, it affects the other person on the other end of the dynamic because they start moving from assumptions or going, oh, it's all fine, or it costs them as well. It costs the other person on the other end of the dynamic if you're not clear. Like it costs them time, it costs them energy. It's just, yeah, I think that's a factor that people don't think about. It's like, oh, if I people please, it's costing
Everyone will be
me.
happy.
Yeah, yeah, everyone will be happy, but it's not in fact true. It's like you've actually prolonged something for them that could have been much clearer if you nipped that concern or that problem or drew that line. If you nipped it in the bud, it actually would have saved them time, money. effort, energy, attention, all
Yeah,
sorts of things.
absolutely. And it's not easy.
Not easy.
It's taken me years to kind of self-train and not even realize I was doing it.
Yes, yes. I love that you said it's exhilarating because I just got a flashback to a time that I was at a lunch with at this private club I used to be a member of. And this
That
man
sounds
was
exotic.
private club, not too exotic, but I wish it was. If there is an exotic private club, please the application. But this man was just sitting there, and once he found out I was a sexologist, like he was just so rude, like just so
Really?
sneaky in the questions he was asking. He was absolutely shocked. I was married, because how could you be married and an expert in sex? Because if you're an expert in sex, surely, the what he was implying was, surely you're promiscuous, surely you want to have multiple partners, surely. Anyway, it was just the most toxic, and it was just fascinating. I felt like this gold rod go up my body, and I just sat up straight and I just kept bouncing the ball back to him. I was like, this is not mine to hold. I am setting the standard. Why would you ask that question? Like, just
Mm,
like go,
yes,
what makes you think that? Boom. Like everyone, it was just the most. And I want women to know that it is a form of exhilaration, is holding your own, recognizing what isn't yours, upholding your own standards and boundaries and non-negotiables in dynamics with people is just such a source of power and
it
thrill in
is.
this life.
It really is. It really is. And once you've experienced it,
Yeah.
you're suddenly like, this works.
Yeah, I'm
I
not going
feel
back.
amazing. Why haven't I been doing this whole time?
So it's now 2020. You are becoming nimble as fuck. You are going, right, what can I do for the business to still keep things humming along? Staff have been cut. It's you and one other staff from memory.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So I kept on, well, it was sort of a dwindling process as the pandemic became more extensive and realized that this was not a short-term pause in the travel industry. And I held on to one as long as I could. And then unfortunately, JobKeeper finished. So did she. But she's back with me now. So
Oh, I love that.
that's
That's
great.
brilliant. Yeah.
Yes, but it was a horrific time because usually when you let somebody go from your business, it's because they're not performing. And
Yeah.
when you have a team of incredibly resilient, experienced, knowledgeable, passionate people, and you have to let them go because you don't know when we can trade again, it's just completely heartbreaking. So not only dealing with the confusion and the unknowns that came with borders being closed, it was the heartbreak of letting go a good team and not knowing if or when we would survive and if or when I could bring any of them back. In the back of my mind, I have always been that person that says failure is not an option.
Mm,
And whether I'm just wired that way, whether something happened to me as a child, I don't know. But that is just how I'm wired. There is
mm,
always a way. You can always find something. And anytime there is anything adverse, negative, out of your control, there is still something you can control. And that is how you feel about it and how you
yeah.
approach it. And
Yes.
so for me, I was straight into survival mode. I was like, cash flow preservation, priority number one. Priority number two, what can we do to trade? And at that time, the only options were to operate travel within Australia. And to me, it's not really what we do. It's quite
Mm,
dull compared to Australia's amazing, but compared to the exotic lands overseas, it was very different to what we'd done previously. And we kicked ourselves into gear and we were the first to come to market in April 2020 with a suite of 9 domestic tours that were so far outside the box of what anybody had ever offered within Australia, through to yacht charters up through the Wessel Islands, which used to be the land bridge connecting Australia and Papua New Guinea. Like we
wow.
went outside the box and it was amazing and it sold like hotcakes. We had every tour full and I thought, yes, we have done this in like record time because we've got this adrenaline and this hunger and this
Yeah.
fight or flight. Like if we're going to survive, we've got to make this work. And I thought we can do this. Even if this thing lasts 2 years or 3 years, if we can sell Australia like this,
Yeah.
we're okay.
We're okay.
And then all the state borders closed and everything had to be cancelled because nobody could get into state to do any of these trips. And so we were back to square one. And at this same time, I was so distracted with trying to get the business to thrive. And I was so excited by what we'd created and seeing it work so quickly and then undoing itself again. I was completely distracted from my marriage at the time.
Yeah.
And there had been challenges there for quite some time, but this exacerbated situation, this high emotion, this stress, I was not there. I was completely not present at all. And hand on heart, a big part of my marriage failure was me. It was me not being available because I was so focused on my business. There were other things involved in it as well, but I'm very aware that my hyper focus on my business let relationships in my life suffer.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, whilst dealing with a halted business and trying to figure out how to trade through that, my marriage also fell apart. And the stress of going through a separation when I had no income and trying to figure out where to live and how to be a single mum and do all of this on my own, I ended up taking 4 jobs while still trying to get my business to do some kind of function on the side. And I was just running on empty. I was so exhausted. Every day I was like, my son, my son, my son, this is for my son. I've got to do this for my son. I have to make this work for my son. And I was not focused on myself at all. I was not focused on looking after me, my health, my mental well-being. And I just kept pushing and pushing and pushing and burning the candle at every possible end.
Yeah.
My health took a massive toll. And it was sort of midway through, we're in 2021 now, and I collapsed at home with this incredible chest pain. And I had to call an ambulance. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't walk. I couldn't do anything. And straight away, they thought that I had a clot from the AstraZeneca. I'd literally had my shot 2 weeks before. And so I was put in, the isolated ward, and COVID test came back negative, but they could not figure out what this incredible chest pain was that I was experiencing. And they did every possible test, ECGs, all sorts of scans, x-rays, nothing came through. And so I was sent home with a whole heap of painkillers and ice packs and heat packs to hold on my chest and just to monitor the situation. And this went on for months. Nothing improved.
Months.
Yeah.
It went on for months.
So I think I was in hospital in May, and it wasn't until the December that they figured out what was actually, I was having CT scan, I was having every possible test, and no one could figure out what it was. And I was dropping weight like nothing else. I was down to 43 kilos. I was like a skeleton, and everyone was just like, it's just stress. It's just stress. Your business is halted, your marriage has failed, you're trying to be a single mom, you're trying to do 4 jobs. It's just stress. You're not eating properly. And I wasn't eating properly. You hear people in the pandemic who stress ate and stress drank and they put on weight. I was the opposite. I felt sick all the time. I just felt nauseous that I just didn't have an appetite. And I didn't recognize what was happening to my body. And because we were in lockdown, I didn't see anybody physically. We weren't allowed more than 5 kilometers from our house.
Yes.
There was nobody who physically saw me that said, hang on a minute, there's a bit of a problem going on here. And it wasn't until I finally had another scan with the dye that it was picked up that I had 6 fractured ribs. And that was, people have fractured ribs and those sorts of things happen. But the confusion was I hadn't had any trauma.
Yeah.
I hadn't been in a car accident. I hadn't tripped over. I hadn't run into anything. And so it was 6 is a bit extreme. If it was 1, maybe it could have been a coughing fit, whatever. And so then it was, what is going on? I did a bone density test and it came back that my wrist bones, beyond a 90-year-old in terms of frail and thin. And that triggered all sorts of flags. And then it wasn't until we had that result alongside with the results from the scan that picked up my ribs that it was determined that I had anorexia. And I had no idea that I even had it. And the minute that was said to me, it was said so casually. Oh, well, they did BMI and they're doing all these things. You've got anorexia. To me, I was like, no, I don't. How can I have anorexia? We learn about that in school. I'm not starving myself. I'm not, it didn't fit the mold of what anorexia is. And it took a couple of days to sink in that I have kind of, not intentionally, but I've done this to myself. How can I function at my peak when I have completely ignored my own health, my own mental health, physical health? How can I, everything was my son, my son, my son. how can I be a good mum if I have no energy and if I'm this brittle, frail little thing? I need myself to function well to be able to function as a good mother. How can I have a clear head to think of opportunities for my business when I'm not nourished and I haven't had that time to reset and reflect and to process everything that is happening to me? I just kept going and going.
Mm.
And it wasn't until that kind of moment where I've gone, I've done this all backwards. I should have focused on myself first to make sure that I was a functioning
Yeah.
being to
Yeah.
be able to manage all of this stress
Yes. Yeah.
instead of everything managing me.
Yes. Yeah. And now that it's 2 or so years on from that, is that how you've switched things around for the most part? Gone, it's about me first, me being fueled in every definition first in order to fuel what exists outside of me? Is that
It
where your
is
attention goes?
it is where my attention goes, and it is what I absolutely try to do. I'm not perfect at
Oh,
it,
not about,
but
yeah, for
yeah,
the,
but I recognize those feelings of what I felt back then. So if something's really stressing me out with work or whatever, and I start to feel that nauseousness of I just can't eat, I notice that feeling and I'm like, I have to eat
yes,
because otherwise I'm going to be drained. So there's things like that are very recognizable that I know led to the path I went down before that I can stop immediately.
yeah,
There are other times where that's not necessarily so simple, but there are certainly flags and things that are very recognizable based on what I came from to where I am that can be managed immediately. And it's actually quite refreshing to be able to identify those
yeah,
things
yeah,
and to be able to talk to other people who go through a similar version of that sort of type of anxiety themselves.
yeah. So you mentioned red flags earlier in our time together. Just, I'm just wondering if you sharing some of your like your red flags for yourself that maybe an interaction isn't right or a business opportunity isn't right, like, and how that affects you somatically. Can you just share what beyond the nausea, like what else goes on for you physically or mentally that might need course correction before you keep pressing forward?
Yeah, sure. So one of the things that I've really recognized and I'm actually still working on now
Mhm.
is emotional resilience
Mm.
and recognizing what triggers me into a sort of anxiety or into this sweat or into like if there's something that happens, for example, we have someone who complains, but it's like an extreme complaint.
Yeah.
I have this challenge where I take it really, really personally, even if it has absolutely nothing to do with me at all, like an
Yeah.
airline canceling a flight, totally not my problem.
Yeah.
But my nature is to be a fixer. I want to fix things and I'm a service person. I love to service.
Yes.
I love to manage expectations and deliver and exceed. And so when something comes back at me that is aggressive or, you know, has an emotional attachment to it, I take it so personally. And I've recognized that this is as a result of everything that I've gone through. I've, you know, come out stronger in so many ways, but it's also triggered this whole new awareness of weaknesses that are still requiring to be worked on. And so when I get this feeling of, oh my God, look at this email, I can't believe this person would say this, and I get all fired up and emotional, straight away, that's a trigger. Stop. You
Yeah.
cannot respond while you're in this heightened
Yes.
state.
Yes, you cannot respond from the heightened state.
You
Yes.
need to defuse.
Yes.
And that is still something that I'm working on. I'm getting better,
Yeah.
but it is a red flag for me when I get my back up and I feel like someone's attacking me, even though they're not.
Yeah.
I just have this sort of self-protection mode and
Mm.
yeah, feel like that I'm personally being attacked and it's not necessarily the situation. And I need to step back, defuse, whatever the process is. For me, I process by talking. I'll talk to a team
Yeah.
member, I'll talk to my partner, and I'll be all angry. I can't believe this person said this thing, and how dare they, this, and this. But once I've had my process of defusing, often giving it the sleep test as well
Yes.
is another one just to help
Yeah.
break that up.
Yeah.
Then I can look at it with fresh eyes, with a rational brain, the
Yes.
emotions removed, and it's like, let's look at the fact.
Yeah.
Remove the emotion. What are the facts? What is correct? What is incorrect? And let's break it down and find a solution.
Yeah.
So that's probably one example where there's red flags, and this is still something that I'm personally developing, but I'm very aware that emotional resilience is something that comes in so many shapes and forms.
Yeah.
and something that impacts people in different ways. And the way people deal with it is completely contrasting.
I really appreciate what you shared. I'm a talker as well. If I can just talk something out with someone behind the scenes, I'm golden. Like I'll be
Yeah.
golden again. Like that and like the sleep test, I'm very much like you. And it's challenging because business is personal. Like it does, it isn't, I hear what you're saying. It isn't whatever they're complaining about isn't necessarily a personal attack. But I just want to normalize for everyone that initial response has it has some standing, if that makes sense. It's a valid response. We just don't want to respond from that place, though. That's where things don't support the bigger picture of the preservation of relationships in the business.
Absolutely. And I
Yeah.
think in those sorts of situations, it's also important to stop and go, okay, what if we look at it this way? If I reply now while I'm fired up and emotional and, ready to be a keyboard warrior back,
Yeah.
what is that actually going to achieve?
Yeah.
And if I wait and defuse and do whatever I need to do, take a run, take a swim,
Yeah.
whatever, book a
Yeah.
holiday.
I like that one.
I'm so angry. I need to book flights to Europe right now.
You've pushed me to the brink. I have to book somewhere else. I'm far away, very far away.
Yeah. So just being able to have that perspective of if I reply like this, is it going to solve anything? If I pause, will I get a better outcome?
Yeah.
And just having that awareness to recognize that too.
Yeah. And this is about, I think for me, one of the most important things in business, and I feel like I anticipate you'll agree, but is that preservation of your reputation as well. Like your
Yes.
reputation is something that you do have a degree of control over or power to influence, and responding from any sort of primal brain fear response of anxiety, anger, fear, feeling threatened, anything at all is a risk to your reputation because you aren't, like you said, you're not clear-headed. You're not really looking at from a solution serving perspective. It's like, how can I defend myself right now?
Exactly.
Mm.
Exactly. And one little sort of cheat trick that I found works really, really well is writing what you would like to write in ChatGPT and then telling it to write it in like a really sarcastic tone. Obviously, don't send it. But what ChatGPT then spits out is usually brilliant, and
Yeah.
it makes you laugh at the
Laugh.
situation,
Yeah.
and it also helps diffuse the emotion much quicker. And
Yes. Yes, that's
it's
such a good
yeah,
tip. That's
yeah,
such a good tip. We need laughter to diffuse. We need it to diffuse. Like it's an important piece that I think women forget about. Women forget about because we're in holding and we're tight and we're protecting and we're, working hard and we're trying to make the shit happen and we're looking after this person, blah, blah, blah. And it's like laughter is just so orgasmic.
yeah.
I'll never forget one of my friends in sexology saying that laughter is a mirror for orgasm. And I'm like, fuck yeah, it is. Like, so releasing. So I love that
Yeah,
you do that. I'm definitely going to.
I can send you
um,
some examples if you need a laugh.
I'm always open to laugh. I'm always open to laugh. You are now, I want to say congratulations. You are now in a beautiful relationship. You are recently engaged.
I am. Thank you.
And the last 8 years, holy shit. Like you live in a different place, your business has evolved, you're in a different relationship, your health and mental well-being and emotional resilience are in a completely different place. Like what has happened? Do you ever just stand in the shower and go, or drive your car and go, holy shit, like, how much has changed?
Yes,
And
it's really, really interesting that you say that because I'm just that person that just keeps going and
you
going and
keep
going
going. Yeah.
and don't really allow myself that reflection time.
Yeah.
And it was literally this week. So I had this moment, and it was probably triggered by my fiance. I had my 40th on the weekend, and he stood up and did a speech, and he mentioned Crooked Compass turned 10 this year. And I knew it turned 10, obviously. And he it wasn't anything that I made public. It was just a thing. For me, it was awesome. We hit 10. It's a massive milestone, but there was this big disruption in the middle with COVID. So I kind of was like, it's not really a thing to celebrate. Anyway, he made some noise about it at my birthday. And once he said it, that made me pause and go, holy shit. Literally, what I have been through in 10 years is probably more than what most people would experience in an entire lifetime.
Agreed.
And that was my first moment of, I have got through this and I'm in a really good space now. I'm in an amazing relationship. My son is incredibly happy and healthy and absolutely thriving. My business is booming more than it ever has before and it's just continuing. Like looking forward, we've never had so much forward business and everything is finally just in line. And some people will say, oh, well, you deserve it. And that's great, but I've worked really hard for it. And I appreciate those comments of support. But that moment of pause just made me go, yes, I have worked so hard to get to this point and I didn't give up and I kept backing myself and I kept fighting and I kept trying to surround myself with people who had the same energy that I thrive off.
Yes.
And
yes.
I looked around at the people that were in the room with me, and there was only 18 of us, and I've gone, every single one of these people bring a different energy that I thrive off. Yeah. And that is why everything in my life is finally lined up. And that was a real moment of, if this is where we're at now, what is to come? Like, this is amazing. This is like climbing back up that Everest mountain, and there is so much more ahead, not only professionally for myself, but for the business, for my family. It's all just so positive. And also too, there's talks about different things going on geopolitically in the world that absolutely would impact my business if they got out of control. But I feel that I have this unique skill set that falls into what we were saying about being unemployable that would not allow me to be in that kind of frozen, paralyzed position that I was in before if everything crumbled and we had to go through this again. I hear a lot of people going, oh, if we went through another pandemic, I would leave the travel industry. I wouldn't do it again. And to me, I'm going, oh, I would stay. I'd be one of the last fighters. I'd be here till the end. I know how to work through these challenges. I know how to manipulate my business. I know how to be nimble. And I'm even more adverse in that than what I was the first time. To me, that's an opportunity. It's not a barrier. I mean, in terms of reflection and looking forward, never been in such a great place. And that can only be reflected in what then happens in the business. You know, when you're in that positive headspace and you've got the good vibes and a fantastic team who feed off you because you're exuding that, it can only go in one direction, and that's up.
Yes. Yeah. That's so beautiful. I'm stoked for you. I am thrilled for you. I'm ecstatic for you. And I just love that it's very much in line with someone I know called Crystal Davis, who's been on the podcast, who's done a world record. And her mindset is, tell me no and I'll do it twice as fast. And I feel like you and her, I need to connect. It's very much like, it goes beyond the word mindset. I feel like mindset, it doesn't even encapsulate. It's like your disposition, your attitude, your operating system is so curious, like bigger than curious, but so willing to take on a challenge and to bring absolute gold out of it. And I just find that so rare and so exquisite.
Well, thank you. No, I often say that I think I'm wired differently. Not sure if it's in a good way or a bad way, but no, thank you, Lauren. That's very much appreciated. And the curiosity, curiosity killed the kitten. Kitten would be 10 times over if I was the kitten. I'm that person that just does not stop asking why, how.
Why? Yes, yeah, and why not? Like, why not? Why not? Why not? Yeah, I'm all here for the women and those of us that are hardwired differently, because I think we are the magic makers. And as you said, you had in your bio, you had the word maverick. And when I read that word, I was like, fuck yeah, of course you are. Like, you are such a maverick. And how should I put it? I don't want to say we need you, like we do. We need you and we desire you and what magic you're here to bring, but it would never, ever be at the cost of yourself, which I feel like I don't even need to say, because you're on the other side of really feeling burnt by the cost of you and your health for all of that magic and nimbleness and maverickness. So We need you. We
Oh.
want you.
Thank you. It's great to feel wanted, but it's also very rewarding to be able to
Mm,
share and see just even sharing your own story impact others in a positive way, even if it's not significant, even if it's the smallest little adjustment
yeah.
or change. It takes time to build what you want and to fight
Yeah.
to get it, and it's not easy.
Yeah.
And I had somebody say to me last week, we were talking about this massive challenge in the travel industry at the moment, which we're calling post-departure anxiety, where it's a result of the pandemic. Once a tour departs, you're just on edge about things
Yeah.
going wrong.
Feel that.
And she said to me, she said, I opened up to her and said, yeah, I'm going through that too. And these are some examples. And she said to me, oh my God, I just have you up here as this like really strong, powerful woman that nothing can break down. And you just keep kicking goals and kicking goals. And I'm going to, no, 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 no. I'm like everybody else. I'm
Mm,
human. I
mm,
do go through the same things that you do. That's just how you've decided to position me.
yeah.
You ask me a question, I will be honest. And if I can help in any way,
Yeah.
like that reward from being able to just share and know that just someone else is sharing their story that's quite similar and get something out of not feeling alone is so powerful and also so personally rewarding as well. It's such a small thing, but just so powerful in terms of making a small difference to that one person.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you. I agree with you. And I think just hearing you speak, your power, your story, what you've been up against, what you've navigated, it is so powerful that you are now in people's psyches. And when they're having one of those challenging moments in business, it's like, what can I do? What is in my power right now? Who could I reach out to? Who could I ask for something in order to move the needle in some kind of way? Because I imagine that's a position in being in the position that you've been in, that you've had to ask yourself that exact line of questioning. What can I do? What's in my power? And who can I ask?
Yes.
It always, my former mentor, Susie Ashworth, said to me, and it can apply to anything, but she said, money always comes through a person. As money always comes through a person. What can come through a person when you want to move the needle?
Absolutely. And I think that the one piece that sort of is often overlooked is courage. People being afraid to ask
Mm-hmm.
because they're afraid of being told no.
Mm-hmm.
And, whether it's to do with something simple that's positive, like wanting to pursue an opportunity, but you're too afraid to have a conversation,
Mm-hmm.
versus something that's to do with adversity and a challenge and something that's thrown you off course and wanting to ask somebody for help. Um, Having that courage to ask makes all the difference. It could just be that one conversation that helps get you back on track.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And you are a living testament of that power. Lisa, I'd love to know. I just wanted to put something to you. There's the incredible Malcolm Gladwell has defined disruptors, which I see you as you're a disruptor. We know that, right? You're a disruptor. And he puts disruptors down to possessing three traits, of which you embody all three. It's that disruptors are creative with new solutions. We're open to shifting up how it's been done. We're conscientious, and what he really means is you're fucking relentless. It's like you relentlessly follow through to make stuff happen. And the last one is disruptors are disagreeable, and you have to be unconcerned if everyone thinks you're crazy. This is where my clients are disruptors deep down, and they've usually done the first two. They're open to disrupting how it's been done. They're being relentless. They are making shit happen. The disagreeable part, they get stuck on that bit. And that's why they're not experiencing this full actualization of what it is that they want. Do you have any tips around? You've been so generous today already, but I'm just wondering, what if you had a woman in front of you that was kind of stuck at that disagreeableness? You have to be unconcerned if everyone thinks you're crazy. What would you say to, I don't know, get the fires stoked for her?
So I guess, yes, I can absolutely speak to this because I am the completely disagreeable person and I love a good argument to prove my point. So yes, if I had somebody in front of me that was stuck with that, and I totally respect the stuckness, I get it. And it comes down to confidence.
Yeah.
And it comes down to when you are so passionate about something and that is really what you believe, why do you care what other people think? I would break that down. What is it? That's usually the barrier. Oh, because such and such will think this of me, or someone's going to say this. If it's what you believe, why does that matter?
Yeah.
That would be my answer. And then I'd probably do a bit of a role play. Tell me what you're afraid of people saying about you. If you say that you believe in this and this is what it is, what are the worst things people could say to you? Okay, well, you already know that that's what they could say. So it's not a shock.
Yeah.
You just do you. Stick to what you believe in. People buy passion.
Yeah.
People love and follow people who back themselves. And if you're disagreeable, but you're consistent in your message and you're strong in your beliefs, whether people agree with you or not, the fact that you have people that disagree with you, that's all part of it. You can't have everybody love you and what you do all day, every day. It's just not how it works.
Yeah.
But you need to be okay with people disagreeing with you, and you need to own it. And the minute that you own it and you stop worrying about the noise, it helps you find your power. And it fills in that last of those 3 boxes that you mentioned. And that is when you finally get that rush of, yes, I am a disruptor. Yes, I am making a difference. People are listening. If they're arguing with me, they're still listening.
Yeah.
And I'm making noise. It's not, you don't want everybody to be like, yes, I agree. You're amazing. I totally am on board with what you're saying. You want people to shake it up. You want people to question you, because it just strengthens your backbone. It strengthens your belief, and it strengthens your stand of what it is that you're trying to deliver.
Oh my God, I'm bathing in your sage wisdom. Thank you, Lisa. I just, yeah. Yeah, absolutely beautiful advice. And I'm just so excited that we could make this happen. And I have no doubt that listeners are going to be really questioning those moments when they feel like they don't have their power, they can't do the thing, that they're going to have some of your words today echoing in their minds. And I think that's something about the disruptor ripple effect that we'll never be able to truly grasp, is that impact on that very personal level. And I want to thank you in advance for all of the impact that's inevitably going to come from more women hearing your voice and your story and your power.
Oh, thank you so much, Lauren. That's amazing. And thank you for the opportunity to share certain portions of my story. It's been amazing.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure. Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you.
I trust that this episode has whet your appetite to add more precision to your power. If you're naturally left wanting more, head to laurenwhite.com.au/private to learn exactly how you and I can work together. And if you yearn to give a little back after crushing on the podcast, share it privately with your favorite woman in business, or hit subscribe and leave a captivating review so that more women can access the inevitability of a white hot business.